Sorry. I'm so sorry that I'm late. Okay, how do we do this? Okay. You always are the moment when you are late to the moment. Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. I'm Raphael and I'm here to review episode 14 of The Real Housewives Who Are Never On Time of Atlanta. We start the episode off the following morning in Jamaica where Sanya had told everybody the night before, make sure that we all reunite in the lobby at 8 o'clock in the morning because she wants to make the most out of the whole day. She has a bunch of activities planned out and instead of taking them to the typical place where tourists go in Jamaica, Montego, Baes, she wants to take them to Kingston to show them around her childhood home, her neighborhood, all of that. So Sheree, she's the first one to show up. And did y'all notice that she actually had on a She by Sheree shirt? I'm like, you see Sheree? It's not that difficult to promote your brand. I promise you. Like you see how quickly you got that on a shirt. You could have done that every single episode this entire season, but no. We only seen like your actual concept come to life on the show, like maybe 2-3 episodes out of 14 episodes so far. Every other episode, when you talk about She by Sheree, it's been nothing but a sweet fantasy, baby. In my Mariah Carey voice. But again, it was nice to see that. But on top of that, did y'all notice how Sheree, she showed up by herself without her plus one? I'm like, what happened to Michelle, the girl that she met at the airport really quickly to take her to Jamaica? What happened to her? Like, was the dinner from the night before too much? What's going on here? Sanya, she was so pressed on everybody having a plus one. But Sheree, she showed up by herself. She by herself. Meanwhile, Candy's upstairs. She's getting ready. I believe at this time, it's 7:55 o'clock in the morning. Candy's in the bathroom and she's like,
this bitch really tried me last night. Like, she really got me upset, but I'm really done with Marlo. I can't take her anymore.
And the producer's like, you sure you don't want to talk to her anymore? Candy's like, no, we're done. We're completely done. I mean, unless I need a storyline for next season, we're completely done. And again, I just don't see Candy actually going back to Marlo. I don't see her or Kenya ever becoming friends with Marlo unless they really have to fake it for the show next season. I'm not sure how that's going to work. But Todd, he comes in and he's like, yeah, Marlo, she's very insecure. I mean, even though she said a couple of things that were true about me, I still feel like she's insecure and stuff. So that's that. Meanwhile, back in the lobby, at this point, I believe it was 8:05 in the morning. So it's 5 o'clock, 5 minutes past the time that they were supposed to leave. Drew and Ralph show up and Sonya's like, Drew, Ralph, Jamaica, how are you? Good morning. Let me show you something. So then Sonya, she proceeds to take out her gold medals. And I'm like, you just carry that around like it's your license? Like she just took that out so quickly. Like, oh, Drew, let me show you something. Here. I'm like, first of all, how did you get that past the security in the airport? I mean, it's a huge gold medal, but then again, I guess you could put it in your suitcase. But regardless, she's showing them that, and Drew in her confessional, she's being a hater. She's like, oh, we get it, Sonya. You won the Olympics. You showed us the gold medals before. It is what it is. Why are you continue bragging about this? Then, and maybe any other episode, I would slightly agree, but in this case specifically, it means a little bit more to Sonya because this is her home turf. This is where she first started running, which led her to the Olympics. So Drew, stop being a hater. Worry about your husband and why he's writing a book about you and your son and why he's not letting you read it. But Sonya, she's like, okay, we need to get this trip on the go. So everybody, they all reunite downstairs, minus Marlo and Kenya. They're both, doing whatever. Sonya had rented out this huge blue bus for everybody to get on. So they're all on the bus. They're waiting. Marlo, eventually, she shows up at 8:30, which is 30 minutes past the time that they were all supposed to reunite in the lobby. She shows up. Candy, she's upset. She's just looking down at her phone. She's like, this bitch better not try me. She's like, I'm writing a diss track right now as we speak with my girl, Tiny. So Marlo, she shows up, she's sitting down, and of course, here goes the apologies, and she looks over at Ralph, and she's like, Ralph, I just wanna talk to you about what I said last night. I was really triggered about what happened with you and Drew and your son and everything. It triggered my own insecurities and my issues in my life and stuff. And I just want to say that me and Drew, you're like my therapist, okay? So Ralph, I just want to say I'm sorry. I was way out of line. It is what it is, but I'm sorry for that. Me and Drew, we're like sisters now. And I'm like, yeah, sure. You two are sisters and you two are like best friends all of a sudden. And she's your therapist until you have to throw her underneath the bus for a storyline or whatever. And then the producer asks Candy in the confessional, so Candy, do you think that Marlo also owed you an apology? Like, do you think that she should say sorry to you? Candy, she's not having it. She's like,
I don't really care if Marlo apologizes to me. I don't even want her speaking to me or breathing around me. I don't even like that she's on this same bus with me. Honestly, if we could take a different car and a different vehicle, I would much prefer that, but I can't stand Marlo. I don't want her talking to me anymore.
And I'm like, okay, Candy, well, I mean, like I said, I think that whole friendship between them is done. So then Sonya, she's like, okay, where's Kenya? Because at this point, it's getting ridiculous. Candy, out of nowhere, she finally opens up her mouth and she's like,
Well, I don't think that Kenya's coming because she feels like nobody checked up on her because she wanted to eat breakfast, but nobody told her nothing. And she wanted cereal with milk, but nobody gave her nothing to eat.
So Sonya's like, okay, like nobody checked up on her. And I'm like, okay, like they're all grown people here. Like we all have grown women on this bus. We all have grown men on this bus too. Why do we need to check up on Kenya? Like, yeah, she's going through a lot with, with Mark and everything and all of that. But I'm pretty sure that everybody else here on the bus, they all are as well have their own issues. So why is Kenya's issues so important? Why do we have to check up on her? Like, do you need cereal? Do you want milk? Do you want milky in bed? Like, do you want a cookie or something? Do you want a Pop-Tart? No, Kenya's a grown woman. She knows what she's doing. And let it be the other way around. And this was Kenya's event and somebody showed up late, Kenya would not have it. Kenya would make it a whole storyline for like maybe 20 episodes. She'll constantly be dragging you. She'd probably like be so petty or whatever. Sonya, she was better than me because as soon as it would have turned like maybe 8:01, 8:02, everybody would have been on that bus and we would have left. It would have been no 8:05, 8:10, 8:15. No, none of that because at this point it's 8:45 and then we pan over to Kenya. Kenya's just waking up. Kenya's just like, what time is it? Oh, all these text messages from Sonya. Fuck that bitch. She's just looking around her room and she's like, oh, it's such a nice view from here. Let me open these curtains. Wow, so nice. Let me take a picture. Wow, okay, let me upload this on Instagram. Like Kenya was just taking her sweet ass time and it was like 8:45 o'clock in the morning or something like that. And I'm not sure if it was editing. Maybe this was like a different scene from a different day or something. But if it was from the actual scene, Kenya, you are so wrong for that. Like you're so inconsiderate of Sonya. And this just goes to show you that Kenya does not take Sonya seriously. Like she has no respect for her. And I'm like, well, all right then. If anything, this also proves that Kenya, I feel like even though I love her and everything, I feel like she should just get off the show. I just feel like her heart isn't into it anymore. She just shows up because she has to. Not because she really cares to do anything about it. And she's just walking around or whatever. And then she finally texts Sonya. No, Sonya calls her. And she's like, Kenya, like, where are you? Like, what's going on here? And Kenya's like, hey, how are you? She said it so like nonchalant, like, yeah, I'm in my room. What happened? What's going on? Where are you? Sonya's like, we had to leave at 8 o'clock. Like, what's going on here? Like, can you please try to make it to the bus? Kenya's like, yeah, I'll try. I'll give it my best shot. Again, Sonya is better than me because as soon as I would have heard Kenya say, yeah, I'll try, click, I would have hung up and I would have been like, okay, let's get this show on the go. Eventually, Sonya texts Kenya and she's like, Kenya, are you coming here? We need to go in the next 5 minutes. Are you going to make it? Kenya, she texts back and she was so petty too. She was like, do whatever you have to do. Smiley face. Oh, that smiley face would have pissed me off. Like, what are you smiling at? Like, I waited like 45 minutes to an hour for your ass and you're sending me smiling faces? Absolutely not. If I was Sonya, I would have sent back 2 middle finger emojis with the little Jamaican flag. With the little peace sign, like, bye, bitch. But that was that, Kenya, she stayed at the resort and that was that. The bus gets going and their first stop is Kingston, which is where Sonya grew up. She gets out and she's like, Kingston, this is where I first grew up, Jamaica. Anybody want to see my gold medals? Let's take pictures with my gold medals. So she's showing everybody around, it was really nice to see this because it's always nice to see, where you grew up and where you came from. And, now that she's successful and she has this whole, big image now of being this gold Olympic medalist. And, it's nice to go back to, this is where I first started from. I always like stories like that. So she's going around and she's seeing a bunch of people in the neighborhood. And she's like, hey, Auntie Sharon.
I don't know you.
Okay. No. She's just playing. She knows who I am. Hey, how are you? Kevin, how are you? Remember me? Remember we used to play when we were little.
I never met you a day in my life.
He's just playing. We used to play like that. Yeah. But yeah. So this is where I really used to live. But again, the whole situation was cute when Auntie Sharon, she came out. She talked to everybody on the cast. She told the camera crew, oh, make sure you're taking care now. Breaking the fourth wall. She's looking right into the camera. So they get back on the bus and they get to this place called Devon's House, this infamous ice cream place in Jamaica where they have this huge, beautiful house on the front of it. So they go inside, they get ice cream. The ice cream looks so good. You see Sheree, she takes Marlo to the side and Sheree's like, so I want to talk about Sheree. No, I want to talk about you and Candy. So what's been going on with that? Like, tell me about that. Marlo's like, well, I just don't understand why she interrupted my conversation with Ralph. And Drew, I was talking to Ralph. I don't get why Candy wanted to jump in the conversation. And that's something that I forgot to mention in my last review, that yes, even though Marlo was very petty, and yes, she always goes for low blows, specifically with Kandi in this situation and Todd, it was Kandi who jumped into the conversation. Yes, Marlo had no say in who she should be questioning when it came to Ralph and his situation with the son and Drew's son. But Kandi did jump into the conversation. So, I mean, what did you expect, Kandi? I mean, yeah, she was calling her out on the right thing, but again, you just expect Marlo to stay quiet? No. So Kandi, she's on the other side, and I'm looking at this woman who's talking to her, and I'm like, who the hell is this? I'm like, do we have a new cast member? And it's Moneta. I continuously forget who she is or why is she on the show. Again, her husband, I'm like, who is that man that's following that? It takes me a minute to click. I'm like, oh yeah, that's Moneta. Again, she adds nothing to the show. She's talking to Kandi. She's like, so how do you feel about this whole situation with Marlo? What's going on with that? Do you think that you two are going to follow each other on Instagram again? Candy's just like,
no, I just don't really see myself really being friends with Marlo anymore. I can't stand that bitch and why she came at me, but I was really upset that she was coming at my husband, Todd. Mama Joyce is one thing, but Todd, nobody plays with Todd. And again, like I've been saying this whole review, I think that the friendship between her and Marlo are done. So then, speaking of friendships, Kenya, she shows up. I'm like, what the hell? She shows up like 2 hours late. And then everybody's like, oh, okay, so she's here. She goes inside, she gets ice cream. Sonya, she pulls her to the side. And again, I just wish that Sonya had the same energy with Kenya, the way that she had with Drew all at the beginning of the season. Because, with Drew, she was just like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? With Kenya, she's sitting down and she's like, so why were you late to my event? I'm like, don't baby her now. Don't talk like a little child. She's asking Kenya, like, what's going on? Like, you're always late to all of my events. What's the problem? Kenya's like, what are you talking about? I have been to every single one of your events, and I've been on time. And the producers and the editors, this specific episode, they were on fire. Like, I'm telling you, Brent was due tomorrow because I'm not sure what's with the shady editing, because they showed Kenya showing up to the dinner the night before, an hour late. She showed up to the bus. Well, she didn't show up to the bus at all. And then now she showed up here at the ice cream place 2 hours late. So again, Kenya, no, you're lying. And Kenya, she starts crying and she's like, well, my child Brooklyn, she doesn't want to talk to her son, to her father, Mark, recently, and it's really affected me. That whole friendship. And again, I get it, and I sympathize with Kenya and all, but just like Sonya said, every time I bring something up to Kenya, she always wants to talk about Mark and that situation. And I get both sides, but Kenya, if you had a lot going on, you shouldn't be on vacation. You should have just stayed in Atlanta and deal with the whole situation with Mark and your daughter and everything, instead of bringing it to Jamaica and just not being a Debbie Downer, but kind of being a Debbie Downer and kind of just weighing everybody down, like, oh, no, I can't do that right now because of Mark. Oh, you want me on this bus? I can't do that right now because I'm going through this whole thing with Mark in Brooklyn. Oh, you want to get ice cream? I can't right now because I'm dealing with this thing with Mark. So again, you could deal with Mark, but deal with it in Atlanta. Don't bring it to Jamaica. And that's just the way I feel about it. So then everybody, eventually they all get their ice cream. They get back on the bus. We see Kandi, Kenya, and Sonya. They're on the bus. Marlo, she's there too. And I'm surprised that they actually kept this scene in, because Marlo, she tells Kandi, out of all people, she's like, Kandi, did you see that Simon just bought Portia a Rolls Royce? And I'm like, wait a minute, they actually kept that scene in. Because as we now know, Simon is Portia's new husband. And Simon, he was also married to Portia's friend, or whatever you want to call it, Fallon, who was also on the last season of this show. So, it was so interesting how they didn't kind of like break the fourth wall, but, they kind of mentioned somebody who wasn't on the show anymore. So it was interesting. So Kandi, she's ignoring her. She's just like, Marlo's like, Kandi, did you hear me? Simon just bought Portia a new car. Did you hear me? Kandi. So Kandi, she finally gives in and she's like, What do you want, Marlo?
So Marlo's like, come on, you're still fucking petty. Seriously? You're still mad? Oh, come on now, grow up. Marlo, as much as people do not like her anymore, she will really push her buttons, and I must give her that. And to that, I'll give her this much credit, because she has a lot of nerves to be coming at anybody on this show. She's not scared of anybody, and I will give her those props, because again, she will push and push and push. And she's like, oh, come on, Kandi, seriously, like you're so fucking petty. Like seriously, like just let it go. It happened last night. Who cares? Kandi, she's like,
Petty? You think I'm fucking petty? You're the fucking petty one. Don't fucking talk to me, Marlo. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Stop mentioning my name. Fucking petty. You're the one that started with me. Please stop talking to me.
So Marlo's like, oh, come on, Kandi, stop it. What are you gonna do if I keep talking to you? Kandi. And I'm like, wow. Again, Marlo, she has nerves because she continues pushing her buttons. And I'm like, you really don't want season 6 Candy to pop up again. So then Kenya adds her 2 cents in and she's like, Candy, are you even listening to her? Why is she talking to you? Like, she's doing too much right now. And again, Marlo, I don't get why you want to talk to Candy now. Like, again, she just pretends that this whole fight with her the night before just didn't happen. As if you weren't just attacking her mom and her own husband who was sitting right next to her. So Marlo, again, she just wants everything to just be okay. Like, if I apologize to you once, that should be enough. We should just move on. But no, it doesn't work that way. You can't just cause a bunch of emotional damage and push people's buttons. And then the next day you're like, want to get ice cream? Like, it doesn't work like that, especially with Candy. The next stop is the Jamaican Stadium where there's a giant track in the middle of it and everybody wants to pair off together to do a race. Sonya, she wants to show off her skills first, so she runs half of it by herself. But she doesn't with no socks or shoes. And if it was up to me, no, because the second that I do the same thing, I'm going to step on a pebble and it's over for me. But fun fact about me, I don't want to brag, but I'm going to brag. Back in high school, I actually used to be on the track team. I used to specifically do the hurdles and I was a pretty good jumper. That's probably why I jump to conclusions now. But, back then they used to call me Legs. Nobody called me Legs back then. But Marlo, she steps up first and she's like, okay, so who am I going to race against? Candy's like, I'm not racing against Marlo. This could be the whore race and I'm still not going to do it. And I know that she'll probably win. And I started thinking, a whore race? Where do I sign up for that? If the Olympics were smart, they'll capitalize off this. And for the next Olympics, they'll add an extra category and they'll call it the Whore Olympics or the Whore Race or something like that. I'm pretty sure that they'll have a good number of contestants. So Drew, she steps up and she's like, I'll go against you, Marlo. So her and Drew, they go and get dressed. Marlo, she comes back out in a diaper. They get ready on the track. They start counting down and they start running. And Marlo was running as if there was an old man with a credit card waiting for her at the end. I mean, she was just like this. I think that's the most active that I've seen her on this whole entire show. From the 20 years that she's been on it? I'm like, wow, okay, that was impressive, but it was this close. Marlo, she ended up winning. They were all celebrating, the blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, Drew is also celebrating and she spins around. Next thing you know, we see her fall to the ground. Come to find out that she tore her Achilles again because that's the way we were introduced to her the first season that she was on with that giant boot. And I'm like, oh, it just looks so painful. The way she kind of just fell on the floor. I can only imagine because I hear horror stories that when you tear that, it really, really hurts. Like, it's just like the worst pain in the world. And she's on the floor, she's crying. I feel so bad for her because again, you're in Jamaica, you're on vacation, and this happens to you while you're trying to have fun. She didn't, it just happened by chance. And, it's just very unfortunate. Next thing you know, the Prime Minister, I think that's what her title was, the Prime Minister of Sports, she comes back out. Sonya, she's like, oh, the Prime Minister is here. And I'm like, what's a Prime Minister? And why are we pretending to be scared? Like, what's going on? What does that title mean? She comes out. Marlo's like, okay, I need to go because I'm dressed like a hoe and I can't be like that in front of the minister. So she goes and gets dressed. The minister, she comes out. She's looking at Drew. She's like, oh, don't worry. I got the finest care in the world. We're going to get you help. So they carry her out. They put her in a truck and that's that. They take her to the hospital and it was confirmed that, yeah, she tore her Achilles and she's going to have to be put in a wheelchair and that's that. And they were like, oh, do you want to go back home to Atlanta? For a second, I thought they were trying to pull a Beyonce. Beyonce in that clip of Destiny's Child when I think she was talking to Farrah or Latavia or Latoya, one of the members, and she was like, oh, well, don't worry, we'll send your bags for you. I'm like, are y'all trying to pull a stunt here with Drew and trying to send her back to Atlanta without her permission? But no, she was fine. And, it was unfortunate, but at least, she managed to just roll with it. On their way back to the resort, Sonya is telling both Sheree and Kenya that they both have an open invitation to come or not come to her and Ross's commercial that they're filming for Ifit. She said that all you have to do is just be there by 9:30. So then the following morning, Marlo is the only one that's on the bus and she's the only one to make it to the Ifit commercial. Kenya and Sheree, they're both in the lobby. They're like, what's going on? Did you hear about Sonya? Like, what's going on? I tried to call her for hours and hours and she just never picked up. What's going on? Meanwhile, Sonya and her husband Ross, they're filming the Ifit commercial. Marlo's on her way over there. She finally gets there with her florist. Her +1. They're there. She's filming. She's fangirling. I thought it was cute of Marlo to do. I'm like, oh, look at her. She was just making so much noise. And they were like, shh, be quiet. We're trying to film a commercial. And I'm like, oh, this is so cute, until Marlo turns on her. But, meanwhile, back in the lobby, Sheree and Kenya, they're just looking at Moneta. They're like, what's going on? Did Sonya uninvite us? And again, the whole thing was kind of like a miscommunication because all Sonya said was, you have to show up on set at 9:30. That was it. How you find your way there? That's up to you. Marlo, she was smart enough to put 2 and 2 together and get herself on the bus and get there before 9:30. So that was it. Kenya, Sheree, that was your fault. I mean, Sheree and Marlo, both of you are friends. So Marlo, you could have at least told Sheree. I understand you and Kenya, you two are not really talking. So you don't have to give her any rules or explanations. explanation, but you could have at least said something to Sheree. But, how were you supposed to know if she was going to come or not? But I'm assuming that they talked the night before, so I don't know. Again, this whole thing was kind of like a miscommunication. Sheree, I felt bad for her. Kenya, on the other hand, I didn't feel bad for her because, even if Sonya was to invite you and she was to take a chance on you coming, what makes you think that she's going to think, oh yeah, Kenya's going to make it there before 9:30? Given your track record on this trip so far, you have been late to every single one of her events. So again, what makes you think that she's going to put any trust in you? Like, oh, she's going to be there on my Ifit commercial by 9:30. Let me pick up this phone call. And on top of that, this is a work trip. Let's not forget this. This is a work trip for Sonya and Ross. Specifically Sonya. I'm pretty sure that she has no time to look at her phone. She's probably running around, no pun intended. Doing a bunch of things, trying to film things or whatever. And the last thing that she needs is, to pick up your phone call and try to babysit you, because she tried to do that already at the beginning of the episode when you were 40 minutes late to the bus and you still didn't end up coming. So again, if I was Sonya, I would have been like, yeah, Kenya, you could come or you can't, but given your track record on this trip so far, I could care less. You're going to show up or you're not. It is what it is. I'm not going to be babysitting you and running all after you like, oh, you need to do this. You need to be over here. You need to be over here for my event. No, I'm not going to do that. So that's your loss, Kenya. It is what it is. Then we see Candy showing up to Drew's room and Ralph is like, finally, you're here to take care of her. I'm going to go cheat in peace, okay? I'll be back in 3 hours. So Candy's like, it's okay. Take your time. So she looks over at Drew and she's like, Drew, I have a new acting gig that I'm trying to get. My coin always comes before anything else. And, with Candy, I've always admired that. But at the same time, it's like, when is enough? When is too much with that? Because she has all this money in the world and she still wants to continue doing more. I mean, for me, I'll just be like, okay, I have enough money. I'm just going to relax on vacation. I'm not going to be worried about anything. But, I guess that's just Candy. She just can't sit in place for too long. She wants to get Drew's opinion on the script and she wants some help because Drew, she's this experienced actress and all. And Drew, she gets the script and she starts reading it. And Drew is just like, yeah, no, have you ever embodied the character? Because I like to know what it smells like. I want to know what the character smells like, what they look like, what they feel like, how they sleep at night, what they eat for breakfast, how do they brush their teeth? And I'm like, Drew, relax, okay? You played T-Boss in the movie TLC, you were in White Chicks for 15 seconds, and you were on the game trying to take somebody's husband. Relax, okay? Like, all of a sudden, she got so many Oscars and stuff on her shelf. Candy, she's just rolling her eyes like, okay, like, you know what? I regret this. I'm just going to leave. So then eventually Drew, she changes the conversation to Marlo and Sonya. And I'm like, why are you continuing to drag out this whole thing with Sonya? She's like, I just feel like with Sonya and Marlo, their friendship is not genuine. I just feel like Marlo, she's just trying to get in Sonya's head because just a second ago, Marlo said, oh, Sonya, maybe she just invited Candy and Kenya to her photo shoot, from like a couple of episodes ago, because they're followers or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, that's kind of like a stretch a little bit because I'm like, yeah, she said it, but I don't think she meant anything malicious behind it because we were all thinking it. I mean, yeah, why would she only invite them for followers? So that's pretty obvious. I don't think that's really shady. Then again, it's Marlo. And are any of her friendships genuine on this show? I mean, they are for a certain period of time until you cross her. Next thing you know, she starts low blowing you left and right, the second that she doesn't need you. So I don't know. There could be some truth to it. I'm not sure, but I just feel like she's just using her as an alliance to have somebody on her side. So Kenya, Sheree, Moneta, and her husband go on this party boat, right? They get on it. There's a bunch of food. There's drinks. Kenya, she gets on the mic. She starts impersonating a Jamaican accent. And she's introducing everybody. They all start having a good time. They start dancing, right? They put the music. Everybody's getting into it. And they were having a good time, right? But Moneta was dancing as if she was trying to get a peach for next season. She was like, yeah, I'm gonna get this peach for next season. Look, I'm gonna prove myself. I'm gonna show you why I need a peach. I'm like, damn, Moneta, like, you're a good dancer, but shit. She was hitting every single move to every single beat. I'm like, wow, you must not get out much. But they were all having a good time and they decided to sit down and eat some food. Moneta, she should get a peach alone for asking Sheree this question. She asked her, so Sheree, what's been going on with your She by Sheree line? And Sheree got diarrhea the second that she asked her that. She was probably holding her food like, oh, fuck. Can't I just go one episode without having to answer to this? She was like, I'm having like a presentation, like a fashion show, but like a presentation. Yeah, it's like a fashion show, but like a presentation. A presentation, but like a fashion show. I'm like, which one is it? Kenya's like, wait, so is it a fashion show or what is it? But I actually appreciate that Sheree was actually honest about it and she had no shame in it. She's like, well, I was going to name it a fashion show, but I'm actually going to name it a fashion presentation just in case if it doesn't live up to anybody's expectations and if I don't get my pieces all in time. So Kenya's like, Sheree, are you going to let me model your clothes? Are you going to let me be a part of your presentation? So Sheree's like, I don't know. Let me see your catwalk. Kenya's like, wow, I feel offended. What do you mean? I've been on so many runways. I've been on... I've been on runways. Not famous people, but I've been on runways. So Kenya, she starts showing her catwalk. She's walking around, she's dancing, she's sliding down the pole, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that models don't do this, but okay. So Moneta joins in on the fun, and then Sheree's like, no, I don't know what's going on here, but my clothing line is gonna be classy. I'm like, classy, classy, classy. Sheree, come over here for a second. Classy. Just 2 episodes ago, you were looking for fabric so you can make a visible print line for penises on your clothing line. So what is classy about that? But okay. Then we get another group dinner later on that night, and we see Sonya and Ross, which, by the way, both of them look so cute in their outfits. They meet up with Marlo and Sheree. Sheree, she was quick to jump in on Sonya, and she's like, so Sonya, what happened? Did you uninvite me and Kenya to your Ifit commercial? What happened? We never heard from you. Sonya's like, well, I was trying to figure out where you were. I never heard from you either. You were supposed to be there, but you never showed up. I was asking Marlo where you were. I don't know what happened. Sheree's like, well, you never texted us. You never called us. What happened? Sonya, again, she's like, well, I was doing a bunch of things. I was getting things ready. I was running around all over the place. I don't have time to be on my phone 24/7. I told you to simply just show up at 9:30, and that was that. Again, she is nobody's babysitter on this trip. Like, okay, yeah, she funded this whole cast trip, or at least Ifit did. But again, yes, she's the host, but she's not responsible to babysit your every single move. I mean, again, like I said earlier, she tried that with Kenya and it backfired in her face. I wouldn't give it a second chance either. So Sheree's like, okay, you know what? Fine, I'll give it a pass this time, but I'm not sure if Kenya's gonna give you a pass. And if I was Sonya, I would have been like, what is that supposed to mean? Is that supposed to be a threat? Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't care if she gives me a pass or not. She could bring it. And I just wish that Sonya had the same heat and the same passion that she has to Drew at the beginning of the season towards Kenya or even Sheree. I just feel like she's a little bit more tame when it comes to both of them. I feel like she's probably scared of Kenya too. So eventually they get down to this dinner table. They're all sitting down. For the most part, everything is good. Candy, she asks Ralph, so are you going to read us a passage of your book or anything? Like, are you going to read us anything? Ralph is like, oh, I'm so glad that you actually said something. Yes, I got my book right here. Okay, so here it goes. Me. There was once a boy. His name was Ralph. He disappeared for 3 days on this magical weekend to this land called Tampa, Florida. And there he met so many strippers. Yes, strippers. And it was such a magical time. He came back home 3 days later and never told his wife at all. His wife questioned him over and over and over again, and he still never gave an answer, even 2 years later. And to this day, it is still a long mystery. I'm like, okay, Ralph, it was cute. I mean, I guess it is what it is. And he sits down, but as he's sitting down, Drew, she's getting all emotional. She's like, that's my man, and I'm going to stick beside him. She was so cute. She was adorable, but she was getting emotional. She's like, you know what? Fine. You know, after hearing him read this passage or whatever, you know, I think I'm going to put the whole adoption thing to the side. I'll be okay with that. Meanwhile, as they're having this whole deep conversation, Sheree and Kenya, they're both being so rude. Sheree's whispering to Kenya like, oh, by the way, did you hear that my She by Sheree line is coming out next week? Oh, no, not next week. Next year. Yeah. But did you hear about, what's her name, Sonya? Well, I actually talked to her, and guess what she said? She said that it wasn't her fault that we didn't show up. Yeah, and then she called you a bitch too. She called you a bitch. Yeah, she called you a bitch. She said that you didn't know how to dress either. Yeah. She said that John would never love you either. Yeah. She said so many bad things about you. Yeah. She said that she actually prefers Marlo over you and that Marlo should be the center peach. Yeah, that's what she said. And Kenya, obviously, she's buying into it. She's like, what? What? And no, she didn't. What's going on? What do you mean? What? You know, she's just raising her voice and everybody's like, what's going on here? What's going on here? Kenya, you know, I feel like Kenya from like season 6, season 5, even season 7, that Kenya came out in this scene. I'm like, ooh, Kenya, wait a minute. Like, I still love her, but, you know, I got a flashback. I'm like, uh-oh, there she comes out again. So Kenya, she's like, Sonya, what is it that you were talking to Sheree about? Like, about this whole iFit commercial. You uninvited us. You never told us anything about it. You never, you know, told us to come. You never even reached out to us. So Sonya's like, I'm not supposed to reach out to you. What, you want me to call you every 5 seconds? Kenya's like, yeah. And again, Kenya, it just does not work like that, specifically with you. Sheree, okay, maybe I could give Sheree a pass. Maybe she should have sent a text message or two Sheree, given that Sheree was the first one to show up at the beginning of the episode in the lobby. But no, you were given way too many chances on this trip alone, and you blew all of them. So no, no matter what you're going through. So Sonya's like, no, I'm not doing that. I have to do so many things for my Ifit commercial. It's not happening. Like, that's not happening. So they start all screaming at each other. Sheree and Kenya, they just ambush her, and they're like, oh, why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? You uninvited us to this. You couldn't do that. And I'm like, again, Kenya, she was just looking for a reason to lash out on somebody. And of course, she chose Sonya because Sonya's probably like a weak link in her eyes. I'm pretty sure she wouldn't go toe to toe with Marlo because Marlo probably to stress her out. But Marlo, she's like, okay, no. One at a time. And Kenya's like, don't tell me what to do. I'm going to speak whenever I want to. And I'm like, oh, again, that season 6 Kenya was coming out. Then they pan over to Ross, who's just observing everything and seeing Kenya and Sheree come at his wife, Sonya. And he's just looking over, and all of a sudden he gets up, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? And he's like, hold on. And I'm like, wait, no, you hold on. Why are you getting out of your seat? In my Nene Leakes voice, you should have just sat there in your seat. But he gets up and he's like, wait, no, hold on. I don't rock with this. Stop fucking with my wife. And everything just went blank. And I'm like, oh, as he said that, I'm like, ooh, okay, it's daddy. But then the other part of me was like, well, I mean, I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, he shouldn't be in women's business. He shouldn't involve himself. But I mean, his wife was getting ambushed by Sheree and Kenya. What do you expect? I mean, he shouldn't have never gotten out of his seat. Maybe he should have addressed it differently. Like, okay, can we calm it down now? Like stop talking to her like this. Maybe he should have said that. But him getting out of his seat and saying, oh, don't fuck with his wife. Maybe, I guess that could have been like too much for people. But I mean, I don't know. Again, if your significant other is just being ambushed by people, are you realistically just gonna sit there and take it regardless of whoever they are? Like if they're a husband or a wife? No, I'm pretty sure you're gonna talk back to them. You have to step in at some point. And I felt bad for Sonya because Sonya didn't do anything wrong in my eyes. I feel like she played her part. She told Kenya and Sheree, you have to be here at 9:30, and she didn't want to babysit them. And they were grown women. Marlo made it there. How come both of you didn't? Again, it's just kind of like a miscommunication, but it was on their part. And Kenya, for you and Sheree, again, to lash out on her, so unnecessary. So that was the episode, and that was that. But what do y'all think? What did y'all think about this whole situation? Are you team Sonya, or are you team Sheree and Kenya, or are you even team Ross? Like, do you think that Ross should have got involved? Again, I don't know. The whole thing, it could be seen from many different perspectives. And by the way, everybody, unfortunately, I'm not going to have a review for episode 15 for next week's episode because I'm going to be on vacation. So I'll be back for episode 16. I can't do it at all because of time management and everything. I'm probably going to have to skip the Real Housewives of Dubai's episode this upcoming week. I'm still not sure about that one, and the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills episode for not this week but the following week. So I'll be back for episode 16, but I'll still update everybody on my community tab, and I'll still watch the episode and everything, and we'll discuss it on episode 16 just in case. So I'm sorry about that ahead of time. It is what it is, but I need a vacation. But that's that. Let me know what you thought about this whole entire episode down in the comments. Bye everybody. Mwah.